What better place to start than the pub? I've had no trouble finding volunteers for a drinking experiment which involves testing reaction times. So what we're going to start now is to start you with a dose. We want it all to get in your bloodstream at the same time, so when we give you a drink, we want you to scull it.
OK, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and scull.
We've told them they'll be drinking a cocktail containing precise amounts of vodka, but actually there's no alcohol in it at all.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, please.
Our volunteers are unaware of the real purpose of this experiment. I want to see if they'll get drunk just because they expect to. They'll be doing coordination tests before, during and after the session.
Has anyone not got a drink? Anyone not got a drink? OK, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and skull. Sorry. Have you noticed your face flushing a bit more?
Yeah.
So you'll just get chatty and flushed, do you think?
Yeah, I think so.
What about your coordination? Have you noticed that change at all?
Not really, no. I don't think I could walk in a straight line now, though. I think I'd find it harder.
OK, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and skull.
Incredible. Remember, this is an alcohol-free zone.
Have you ever been sick in your bed, Darryl?
No.
Have you ever been sick in someone else's bed?
Yes.
Lovely.
Well, it's been a couple of hours and it's all been very interesting. No one got really drunk, but their faces got flushed and some got a bit wobbly. But what really amazed me, though, was the computer test. Their reaction time slowed down by about a third. So it was a great evening, but was it science?
So what we did is we got this group of volunteers and tried to get them to believe that if they thought they were drunk, they would actually behave as if they'd taken in alcohol, even though they hadn't. And what I want you to tell me is why. Why should telling people they're taking alcohol make them behave as if they were drunk? So this graph shows that even though they were doing the test again and should have got better, actually, because they thought they were getting drunk, their coordination actually got worse.
Mm-hmm.
Why did that happen?
When you go to the pub, all the cues, everything in the pub becomes associated with becoming drunk. And these cues are then later able to evoke the state of drunkenness by themselves without actually being drunk.
So you go in a pub, you see a barman, you see things that look like alcohol, you have a party atmosphere, you expect to be drunk.
Absolutely.
One area where you really can see the dramatic effects of expectation and the power of the mind is in pain control. This man has been hypnotized. He's been told that one of his arms is anaesthetized and one isn't.
Now, this is his left arm, which is perfectly normal, and responds to pinprick as one would expect a normal arm to respond. And this is his right arm, in which I have suggested he has no sensation.
No one really knows how hypnosis works, but it clearly involves the power of suggestion. This man accepted the suggestion and felt no pain simply because he'd been convinced he wouldn't.
Did you feel any pain?
None at all.
None at all.
So, Roy, it's fascinating stuff, don't you think?
Well, yes, it is.
I'll tell you something else, though. This mind-over-body thing works really well when you add in some props.
How?
Well, come this way. Let me show you my placebo.
Placebo is Latin for I shall please, and it's mostly used to describe inactive pills or fake treatments that are given to placate anxious patients. But even a sugar pill can produce good results if the patient believes it will. So do you have to be gullible for it to work?
Yeah, I don't think being responsive to placebo is a matter of gullibility. You can have the wisest, most brilliant person in the world, and in fact, you probably need a certain level of intelligence in order to respond to a placebo.
OK, so what are the things that make the placebo effect really powerful? What does the doctor have to do?
Well, the first thing that he has to do is elicit the patient's trust, and that's why being deceptive in the long run won't work. The key is convincing them that indeed whatever it is you're doing is going to help.
Look, Roy, all you have to do is take a couple of these twice a day orally. They're placebos, they contain no active ingredient whatsoever, but I believe they will help you as they have helped millions of others.
No, I'm sorry, you've lost me.
If you believe something will make you better, then it probably will.
How?
You know, all that mind-over-body stuff, you know, the power of suggestion and expectation. You're not buying this, are you? Roy, all you have to do is believe.
So you could get a placebo from your doctor, but they're more commonly associated with drug trials where a new drug is tested for effectiveness against a placebo.
Tell us about the actual drug trials that have been done looking at the power of placebos versus standard treatment.
In some cases, it's absolutely phenomenal. In the case of depression, we've looked at the placebo response to antidepressant medication. 90% of the effect of Prozac was duplicated by placebo, and that's an astonishing percentage.
So for antidepressants, the active drug only provides about 10% of the total benefit. The rest is the power of expectation. They work because people think they will.
So does the placebo effect work in really serious illness like cancer?
Well, you know, there was one fascinating report years ago, a case history of a fellow that was terminally ill with cancer, was included on a drug trial. His tumor melted away, he became ambulatory again, and then he read a newspaper report saying that the drug was not effective. He got worse again. His doctor, seeing this, said to him, well, you know, the drug that we had was not a pure sample of the drug. Put him on placebo. And again, the tumors melted until he read a newspaper report saying that the drug had been found to be ineffective completely. And again, he got sick again and died a few weeks later.
So that was purely the power of his expectation and belief over his tumor?
It would seem to be. You know, the hard thing is that it's just one person, and what you need to have is research to see how generalizable that effect is.
It's sort of the same with placebos.
Tell us about the sort of pecking order of placebos. What makes a good placebo?
Well, probably the weakest you're going to have is this little white pill, because it doesn't look very effective, whereas if you take something red like this, that's going to indicate more power. A capsule is going to be more powerful yet, and we know that capsules produce more powerful pain relief than pills do. And then how you deliver it, if you do it with a pill, that's one thing, but if you use a syringe and you give an injection, that's going to be much, much more powerful.
So can you work the way up the pecking order? Does everything have a placebo?
Yeah, probably the most powerful placebo of all is going to come from surgery, and there have been studies using placebo surgery where they would just cut the person open and then not do the critical work on the inside, sew the person back up again, and that, of course, will give you a very powerful placebo.
If you think cutting people open and sewing them straight back up again is incredible, then you should see the results. In the late 50s, surgeons in the US operated on patients with angina chest pain. Some had the full treatment, others got placebo surgery. 73% of people who'd had the real thing felt better, but in those who had placebo surgery, the figure was an astonishing 83%. And they're still doing it. Following recent studies into Parkinson's disease in Sweden, doctors in the US have been putting volunteers through a clinical trial to test a new procedure. It's controversial and risky.
Well, basically, they gave the patient a general anesthetic, and then what they did was they drilled into each side of the skull, and then they inserted material, fetal material, in the hope that it would allow the neural material to regrow.
The placebo group, though, received no implanted material. They simply had the wounds sewn up again.
OK, so the people who end up in the placebo wing presumably didn't know if they were in the placebo part of the group.
No.
What did they do to them, the placebo
Well,
people?
what they did to them was they gave them a general anesthetic, which is a risky business. Then they bored holes in the skull, which is a risky business and rather unpleasant. You might get all kinds of infections, and it's not really a great idea to have people doing things to your skull in that kind of way.
But presumably the patients gave their informed consent for this.
Well, that's a good question, because it depends what you mean by giving consent. Yes, they're told that some of them will not receive the treatment, but patients generally believe, no, doctors wouldn't do that to me. Doctors will always act in my best interest. So actually they believe it will really be the real McCoy rather than the placebo.
And what do you as an ethicist think about this? I sense from your tone that you're slightly sceptical.
I think that's a pretty accurate reflection. I don't think there was valid consent, and I don't think we should allow harm to be done to people. One of the primary rules in medicine is to do no harm.
The Parkinson trials are ongoing, and we don't know if the risks will pay off.